Today we're going to talk about a coccolithophore. Now what's a coccolithophore? It's a small phytoplankton that lives in the surface of the ocean, usually in low nutrient areas. But the one we're going to talk about today is named the Emiliania Huxleyi cell. Now this cell has about 30 calcite shields called coccoliths around it, and those shields form its cocosphere. Now it has this sphere, and it's really small, about 2 to 5 micrometers in length. But the sphere protects it from even smaller viruses, probably about 200 nanometers in diameter. Now, whenever the Ehux cell gets infected by one of these viruses, they can no longer go through photosynthesis. That means that the virus has overrode its genes with its own proteins. That means the cell tries to engage in caspase. Caspase is whenever one cell will detonate itself for the sake of the rest of the herd. These herds are actually called blooms. This isn't really effective since it's a single cell and they lose all their DNA in the process. Since these cells start out in a diploid phase, meaning they're mostly symmetrical, they can also turn into a haploid phase, making them asymmetrical. Whenever they do this, the virus can no longer detect them. So lytic infections don't recognize these haploid cells. These are known as heterococcolithophores and holococcolithophores. However, the virus has upped its own game as it can now recognize haploid cells. But the haploids are so strong that whenever they get detected, there are no signs of the actual infection. These are known as haplococcolithovirus cells. After millions of years, this battle of arms continues between these cells and these viruses. But what about us? Why does this matter? Well, for one thing, these coccolithophores make the very ground we stand on. Their calcite shells fall to the ocean floor, making things such as the White Cliffs of Dover. Not only do they make layers of calcite, but of carbon. That being said, they are one of the leading producers of carbon and have an enormous effect on the carbon cycle. These shields also play an enormous effect when changing the albedo of the planet, meaning they reflect so much sunlight it actually warms our atmosphere. That means that they actually have a huge part in our global climate. Lastly, these guys produce more than half of our oxygen every year. That's because they are plants. They take CO2 from the atmosphere and turn it into oxygen. These coccoliths are enormous. They travel in blooms large enough that they're bigger than England. They're seen from space. These little warriors are crucial to our planet's well-being and our own. After all, they are fighting for our every other breath.